Okay. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sang Kim, Senior Counsel here at VisaNation, joined by Managing Attorney Shilpa Malik at VisaNation and Lyndsay Stiff, Associate Attorney, also here at VisaNation. We welcome you and appreciate you joining us on today's webinar regarding the H-1B visa lottery. Um, we'll begin by sharing some screens from our website regarding some basic overviews of the H-1B visa lottery process for this year for 2024-2025. And we hope that we'll be able to allot most of our time today for questions. But with that, please go ahead and put comments in whatever medium you are watching our stream through. Please be mindful of avoiding questions that are fact specific to your case, especially if they contain privileged or confidential information. You're welcome to schedule a consultation for those questions, but we would recommend that you keep your questions and information provided generalized for your own safety and confidence. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share screen on today's presentation. If you just give a moment here. Here we go. Great. So to begin with, let's talk about the big change. Unlike last year's and previous year's H-1B lottery, especially since the H-1B selection process has been electronic, in other words, there is a initial registration for a lottery selection, and then only if you are selected will you actually file an H-1B. In previous years, the H-1B selection process was done by per H-1B position. In other words, there were many individuals who had H-1B job offers from several companies. It made sense from a kind of a strategic standpoint as far as opportunities and value of the employee and their skills and services, as well as the fact that for the most part, USCIS has determined H-1B based on per filing. So more than one filing was permissible. So if you had more than one job offer for an H-1B, you could have more than one lottery selection. Last year, there was some incidents of USCIS basically claiming there was a uptick in fraud and misrepresentation of companies colluding to maximize lottery selections for certain individuals. So with that, and a lot of feedback and back and forth between the legal community, the client and beneficiary community, as well as USCIS and interested stakeholders, the decision was made to make this year's beneficiary centric. In other words, one lottery selection per person. That's it. The expectation is that when you apply, you will use your passport or registered travel document, and one per person. And then and only then, if you are selected, will you then be able to file your H-1B applications after the April 1st filing, start date begins. This has been viewed as equitable. It does, for the most part, remove the ability to advantage on multiple job opportunities towards improving your lottery selection. But for the most part, most people find it equitable that every single person has one opportunity. There is one caveat to that. In the past, and it continues to be so, that there are two subsets of the lottery selection process. There's one for U.S. master's degree, and there's one for what's called the regular cap, i.e. bachelor's degrees, or people who have been able to be qualified based on their totality of their education experience. So what usually happens is those individuals who are U.S. masters are first run through the random selection process for under the U.S. masters category. And then if they are not selected, they are then moved into the regular lottery. So U.S. masters continue to have two chances at lottery selection. But for the most part, this is the major change regarding the selection process. Now, I am again want to welcome your questions on however you are watching our today's stream today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our managing partner Shilpa Malik to talk about timelines and other logistics related to the H-1B lottery. Shilpa?
Thank you, Sang. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Let me go over some of the initial matters as it relates to the H-1B registration. Uh, employers will be able to create their accounts starting February 28th. So some employers may already have existing accounts through prior registrations that were done since the program started in 2021. And there are some employers who may be going into this for the first time, and they would then be required to set up an organizational account through myuscis.gov. And if you're working with a law firm, the law firm should be able to assist the employer to be able to do so, or it's a fairly simple process. The instructions are very clear on USCI's website, so an employer is able to register after following those instructions. An H-1B registration lottery application can only be submitted through an online account. There is no paper-based filing available for an H-1B registration at this point in time. Therefore, please do not forget to access your accounts when they become active on February 28th. If you have an existing account, please go ahead and check if it's fully functional and you're able to log in. If you need to create a new account, please be sure to log in or follow the instructions on the USCIS website, and you'll be able to create an account on February 28th. The account can be created at any time starting February 28th all the way until the end of the registration period. So just because you're not able to do it on the 28th, that does not mean that you will not be in a position to create an account on the 1st of March or the 2nd of March, etc. Now, moving on to the period of registration. The H-1B registration period officially starts at noon Eastern time on March 6th and will get over on noon Eastern time March 22nd. So you have roughly about 16 calendar days, give or take, to be able to submit an H-1B registration on behalf of an employee. We do not recommend waiting till the very last minute because the systems can crash, there can be errors, you may have to resubmit a registration if there's an error. So we recommend trying to get your registrations in by the 15th or the 16th of March if you're able to do so, because that's a good 10 days after the registration period starts. Now, one of the other important things that I would like to mention is whether you submit your registration at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on March 6th or 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on March 22nd, you have the same chance of being selected in the lottery. Submitting your registration the first thing or the last thing makes no difference as long as you do meet the deadline and are submitting your registration in that period. Now, once the registration is submitted, there'll be in the system, the registration will show as submitted because that submission will only show up once the payment is made. Now, the payment for or the filing fee for the registration remains $10. It is going to increase in 2025, but this year they have decided to keep it at $10. Next year it'll be $225. Now, as far as once the my apologies, it's $215 starting next year. Now, once the registration is already submitted, you will just need to sit back and wait for the registration period to be completed and for USCIS to run the lottery. The lottery will likely be run the first weekend or the second weekend after the registration period closes. So starting around, I would say, March 27th or 28th, the employers will start getting emails from USCIS if the registrations have been selected in the lottery. The email typically says action has been taken on your case, and the employer should be looking out for such emails. Make sure it's not in their spam folder. I would ask all employers to check their emails starting around March 27th or the 28th. Only if the registration is selected in the lottery will the employer receive an email. If it's not selected in the lottery, then the employer is not going to receive any email. If the employer does not get an email by March 31st, end of the day, the registration has not been selected in that round of the lottery. Now, for those who have been selected in the lottery, the employers will have 90 days starting April 1 all the way until June 30th to submit a full-fledged H-1B petition on behalf of that employee to USCIS. The petition, as of this year, can be submitted online or it can be a paper-based filing. The online filing will require the employer to submit all the forms, the support letter, all the supporting documents supporting the H-1B filing. And Same goes for the paper filing. The online filing will allow you to submit the payment online through the mechanisms made available by USCIS on their online portal. And when you send a paper-based filing, you'll either include checks payable to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or you'll fill out the credit card authorization forms and attach it for each application. To go to the fees, there has been a change in the fee that is becoming effective April 1. The USCIS filing fee for small employers who have 25 or less full-time employees will be $460 plus the what's called the American Competitiveness Workers Compensation. That basically is another $750 or $1,500 depending on what is the size of the employer. And then there's a fraud prevention fee, which is $500. And last but not the least, this year USCIS is adding what's called an asylum program fee of either $300 for employers with 25 or less full-time employees, or $600 for employers with more than 26 or more full-time employees. Now, the filing fee for employers who have more than 26 or more full-time employees will be $730 plus all the other fees that we've mentioned. You do have the option of filing the application under premium processing by paying an extra fee of $2,805. Under regular processing, USCIS will process the application in approximately 6 to 10 months, whereas under premium processing, USCIS will adjudicate the petition within 15 calendar days of receiving the petition. Now, there are many people who on this webinar who may be on OPT status, who will then need to check if they are eligible for CAP-GAP. Please understand that in order to qualify for CAP-GAP, the H-1B petition needs to be filed within the 90-day window, and it has to be filed before the employee's OPT expires. So if the OPT is expiring sometime in April, May, or June, you need to be very mindful of those dates and ensure that the H-1B petition reaches USCIS prior to the OPT expiring. In any event, do not miss the deadline of filing, which will be June 30th. Now, moving on to one other aspect that's very important to both employers and employees is the prevailing wage for H-1B. The prevailing wage aspect is unique to H-1B and green card applications. USCIS or the Department of Labor and USCIS have set numbers that they work on every year based on the market data that's available on the Department of Labor's website. And there are 4 assigned levels to those wages based on whether it's an entry-level position or a lateral position or a position that is a senior level position. You would need to pick a level based on the SOC code and the job description for the position. Only that wage that wage will be regarded as the minimum wage that the employee can be paid. So it doesn't matter what the employer is paying all other workers or chooses to pay all other workers who have green cards or U.S. citizenship or other forms of work authorization. H-1B wages have to conform to the numbers set by the Department of Labor. So it has to be either the prevailing wage or the higher of the prevailing wage. So that is also a question that comes to us very often. Now, moving on, I will pass on the mic to my colleague, Lyndsay Stiff, who will talk about some post-filing tips or post-filing actions once you've submitted the petition. Lyndsay.
Post-filing actions, you may track the status of your application on the online case status tool. There's a link on our website regarding that. If you receive an RFE, which is a request for evidence, it's usually going to be a determinant of specialty occupation question or questionable employer-employee relationship. Those are the top 2 reasons for RFEs being issued on H-1B applications. So those are issues to closely watch as you're doing your petition to make sure that you fulfill the requirements for a specialty occupation and that there is a solid employer-employee relationship. We have more tips about it on our website, but we can also answer any questions you might have about that. So I will turn it back to Sang.
Great. Thank you, Lyndsay. I'm going to add everyone to the stage and stop sharing in just a moment here for now to thank you for all your questions. We're going to go ahead and begin answering them for this allotted time. I do want to thank people who have asked questions that are not H-1B related. Regretfully, we'll only address those if there's time left, but we invite those who are asking questions not related to the H-1B visa lottery process or H-1B visa itself to please go ahead and contact us via email or through our website with your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and start with the, this is a common question regarding H-1B employers or situations where there are three parties, the H-1B employee, the H-1B employer, and the client side that, or third-party client that may be involved. Shilpa, Lyndsay, I invite either of you to feedback on this one.
All right, thank you so much. So Diana, thank you for your question. Now, we do represent several staffing agencies who hire applicants on H-1B and are the primary employers of the H-1B applicant, but place them with their clients. Now, there are certain requirements to meet a client placement, basically H-1B filing. USCIS will look at the following: whether you actually have an employer-employee relationship with the applicant, which will be documented with an employer-employee agreement showing that while they may be working at a client side, you as an employer will have full control over their employment, and you'll be the one who'll be assigning them to whichever project they need to be working at. Number two, they would also want to see that you'll be the one paying them the wages. You may be getting a payment. You'll obviously be getting a payment from your client, but the wages will be run by your company for the H-1B employee. And last but not the least, you do need to provide documents to USCIS showing that there's a bona fide need for this H-1B worker at the client side, which is usually demonstrated through a master services agreement, a statement of work, etc. So once you submit this package, and you have all the information in there, it's a very common system for staffing companies who like to basically represent clients that they have and clients who do not wish to hire workers directly, but would rather use a staffing company to hire those workers and assign them as contractors to that particular client. I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you so much, Shilpa. I'm going to go into the next question here. Let's see here. It's about the scenarios specific regarding consular processing. I'll go ahead and answer this one. So the quick answer, Karen or Karan, is that no, there really is no approvability or eligibility question regarding filing for an H-1B while you're outside the U.S. It's called the consular process, and registration, lottery selection, filing, and approvability are all the same. The only difference for those who are outside U.S. when filing, or if their H-1B is approved as a consular action, is before you can begin work in H-1B status, you must go to the corresponding embassy of your nationality, residence, or home country, get your H-1B visa stamp for yourself and your dependents, if applicable, and then enter the U.S., and then only then can you begin working in H-1B status. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to ask your supplemental question, which is, do the beneficiaries get any kind of confirmation that their names has been submitted in the H-1B lottery process, or is the confirmation only from the attorney? It's actually only the registrants online. As Shilpa said, the H-1B lottery selection is done completely online. It is based on the employer account, which means only the employer will receive an email. Shilpa, I'm actually not sure whether or not attorneys get a courtesy email or only the employer. We do.
We
great.
actually get a courtesy email if your employer is being represented by an attorney. Now, please remember, some employers choose to do the registration process completely on their own, in which case the only person who would get that email is a person who entered their email address on the registration application. There's nobody else who's going to get any information, including the employee. You can always check with your employer if your registration has been selected in the lottery. And if it is, then your employer can share a copy of the electronic confirmation of the registration selection with you.
I do want to add one other particular note that comes up often is, like last year, it could happen where there is another round of H-1B lottery process, meaning that everyone who registered in March will get a second lottery because more H-1Bs became available because the people who registered didn't actually follow through, didn't actually apply for an H-1B, or more H-1Bs have become available later in the year. In those situations, the same account and the same employer contact and attorneys will receive that email. So beneficiaries should be on notice that if for any reason you didn't get the good news in March and April, but then you hear in the news that there was another registration lottery selection in the summer or fall, then you're going to want to maybe touch base with your employer or employers who registered for you and find out if there has been any update regarding an email and an opportunity to apply. So let me move to the next question here from Yi Chu. Transferring the H-1B from academia to industry. Do I need to submit the application according to the timeline, or can I do that anytime as my job switches? Well, Yi Chu, I'm going to assume that when you say academia, you have what's called a cap exempt H-1B, which means you are working for a qualified institution of higher education or related research or nonprofit that allows you to skip the lottery selection process, which is great. But those H-1Bs are only for cap exempt employers, which means if you are moving from a qualified cap exempt nonprofit school to a for-profit private cap subject lottery employer, yes, you will need to go by the timeline, which means you're going to need to go through what Shilpa and I and Lyndsay have discussed regarding making sure you register on time next month, and that you are watching for updates on whether or not you have or have not been selected for the lottery process. With that, I'm going to move to the next one. Oh, this is a fun one. I'm actually ready for this question. Are there any predictions for the number of H-1B applicants this year, especially considering the USCIS policy to prevent multiple submissions? Understanding this could help us estimate the selection probability. I love data-oriented people. We do try to hedge our bets as much as possible. Anecdotally, I will say privately that Shilpa, Lyndsay, and myself, and within our peers are taking bets on what the selection process is going to look like this year. I think it's going to look good. I think overall, if last year's and previous years was like 1 in 10, 1 in 12, it's going to improve. Whether it's 1 in 6, 1 in 8, it's hard to say. There is one bit of information I was able to find from this year's rulemaking process. I'm going to do a share screen because I think it's going to be interesting to share. Give me a moment here. There we go. So when USCIS updated the rules regarding this year's lottery process, along with other H-1B rules, they presented data for the last 3 years on how many lottery selections there were. In 2021, there was 274,000 registrants. In 2022, 308, and 2023, 483. Now, what's interesting is in the third column, you see that eligible registered for multiple registrations, meaning that last year, there were about 480,000 overall registrants, but a third of those, 165,000, were for people who registered more than once. So, job marketing being what it is, the number of sponsorships, a lot of X factors, but this points to a good hypothesis, speculation, grounded, guess that there will be more. The value of your registration will be overall higher because the pool of registrants will be smaller. So, in other words, your chances will go from 1 in 10, 1 in 12 to 1 in 8 if a third of possible lottery selections is no longer applicable. Depending on your job market, one can conjecture there's going to be the same number or less number of job applications based on how hot the employer-employee job offer opportunities are out there. I know tech is kind of taking a hit this year. So, we'll see. But, chances are, I would say is that there's a little bit of optimism this year, given the way the process has been done. I'm going to go to the next question here. This is a logistics question. Can I apply for H-1B while I'm currently in the process of applying to renew the TN visa? Shilpa or Lyndsay?
Yes, absolutely. There's nothing restricting you from pursuing an H-1B while you're in the process of renewing a TN. H-1B is a dual intent visa category. I do want to clarify that you can only hold one status. In the US, it's either the TN or the H-1B. Nobody can hold two separate statuses. There's only one exception when somebody's on a temporary protected status in the US and may have another visa or status in addition to the TPS, but otherwise it's either the H-1B, the TN, or any other visa that they may hold. Again, there's no restriction. You'll just have to follow the timelines.
And I'll add one other nuance is that there is something called concurrent H-1Bs for those individuals who have more than one H-1B employer. That is a possible, strategy. But note, it aligns with Shilpa said, meaning you can't have two different letter visas as your status. I'm going to the next question here. How do I know that my employer has submitted my case for H-1B lottery? Rajinder, I'm going to assume this question is just more about confirming and feeling that your employer has done what they said they do. If you decide you do not want to take their word for it, then you probably want to ask for a screenshot or some sort of other confirmation that they will receive that your H-1B has been selected. They may choose to redact some of the information if they deem it appropriate, but I would assume that's probably the only way for you to know if you feel you want some additional information or evidence other than just a verbal or written confirmation. Moving on to some other questions. What is the age limitation for applying on H-1B visa? I'm not sure I understand this question. It's H-1B is for a job opportunity, so there is no age maximum. As far as age minimum, it's whatever is an H-1B appropriate job. So since it's a bachelor's degree position, is usually the understanding. It's very. I've never seen anyone who applied for it while they're already in secondary school. It's just logistically impossible. As far as unless you're, for those who are Gen Xers and other a Doogie Howser or some sort of other prodigy. But yeah, if you happen to be that on the call today, please engage in our consultation. I'm happy to take on this case for free because I'm just really fascinated to see who actually thinks they can apply. But if there is actual nuance to your question, all jokes aside, Rajendra, please email us if we're not understanding your question correctly.
I'd just like to add that there's no max age limit to apply to an H-1B. If that is your question, I just want to clarify that. As long as you have a bachelor's degree in a field that's related to your employment, you can be 60 or 70 and still apply for it. I'm not sure if you want to be working that late, but yeah, you're more than welcome to apply at any age. There's no restriction to that. Just one other quick thing. There's a lot of questions coming in, and we're trying to get to as many as we can. There may be a few that we may have to skip because of the time restrictions. So please bear with us. Again, you can always email us or schedule a consultation if you need any specific advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa, for the reminder. Absolutely. Let me go to the next one here. Let's see. Sorry, I lost. Here we go. Lost. Is from Said or Saad. Is there any change in policy for the requirement of skill sets and qualification? I heard this year USCIS is only considering STEM-based skills. Please clarify. Happy for either of you to kind of jump in on this.
Shilpa, I don't think I've heard that. Have you heard anything about that? There is more focus.
There's no restriction. There's no restriction. Yeah. The same as previous years. Now, will they keep changing in the subsequent years? There is a possibility, especially if there's a change in administration. There could be some tightening around the H-1B registration process, and they could ask for additional information. But as of this year, as long as you have a bona fide job offer, as long as the person is qualified to apply for an H-1B, there's some very basic details that are requested from the company and from the employee to submit the registration. The actual scrutiny on the application comes once it's submitted. So that's when USCIS will basically review to see whether all of the requirements of an H-1B have actually been met before they decide to either issue a request for evidence for further information, or they'll go ahead and approve it.
Great, thank you, Shilpa. I just to close, I understand there's a lot of news, especially with this administration, regarding STEM, AI. There's a lot of initiatives to try to increase the job market, take opportunities involved. That's more about just opportunities. It doesn't change the rules, and I think that's clarified and confirmed by Shilpa and Lyndsay on today. I'm going to quickly say, Tracy, I put on the chat feed our website. Feel free to use that to contact us directly regarding consultations or any questions you or your employer may have.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to answer Tracy's question because I do recognize her and I just want to respond to it. Tracy, absolutely. You can reach out to Jenny Garcia. Or the employee can reach out to Jenny Garcia with any questions and we'll be happy to address them. I'll have Jenny send you an email directly with that information. I also wanted to quickly jump to your other question that I saw at the bottom. Anything extra to consider for those applicants currently on F1 who graduated with a master's degree last year? I just want to add there's nothing extra other than that they need to qualify for the position and there has to be a legitimate bona fide position that has nexus to their degree. Everything else will be taking care of it on behalf of the company. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Shilpa. And thank you, Tracy, for joining. Lesage, you asked about RFEs on a case you're working on. This is a fact-specific question to you. I encourage you to go back to your attorney for this question. If you do believe there's some issues regarding your current counsel, feel free to reach out to us on this, but I won't be able to answer this question directly. How many rounds will not happen this year? Last year, Shilpa, I think it was 3?
No, actually just 2.
Just 2. Okay, so
the year before there was 1, and I believe in 2022 or 2021 there were actually 3 rounds.
Okay, so it's going to be based on what happens with the initial lottery. The demand is always going to be high. It just statistically seems that way, no matter what. There's so the question becomes is how many of the people who registered and then didn't follow through and apply, how many, so it's hard to say, but I think 1 to 3 is probably a good expectation. But I would say 1 is more likely than 2, and 2 is definitely more likely than 3. Let's see. I'm just going to go down the questions. It is 9:30. We're going to try to speed round this, but we will be closing our webinar in about 5 minutes or so. We thank you for your attendance. We really appreciate your questions. Please contact us if you have any follow-ups, or especially if you'd like to engage our services. So with that, back to Rajendra. How do I know which employers are in sponsors visa if I want to apply on an individual basis? That's more of a job market issue, Rajendra. There is no a common database that USCIS or many legal law offices have as far as which employers are willing to sponsor H-1B employers. I would say is that go search. There are, I think, some websites or resources that claim they have a database or kind of like an Indeed or a ZipRecruiter for certain filters and criteria. But no, there's no universal resource that I would say we have available that answers this.
I did want to take on this interesting question from Pragati Yadav because I
sure. Let me scroll down to that. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So Pragati, unfortunately, if your STEM OPT expires on March 31st, and that's the absolute last date, you won't be eligible for cap gap, because in order to be eligible for cap gap, your H-1B petition should be filed and pending with USCIS before your OPT expires. So in this case, because your OPT is actually ending on March 31st, which is unfortunate, and you won't be eligible for cap gap. You'll be able to stay in the United States while the H-1B petition is in process, but you'll not be able to work.
Okay. Thank you, Shilpa. If the employee has more than one job offer, all potential employers will file the registration. So remember, again, yes, if the way the logistics have been explained so far by USCIS is that when you register with whatever employers do, you're going to use the same travel document, your passport. That's your identifier. And so as long as you do not try to circumvent that, then the database that they have should run you once. And once you are selected, then you choose which H-1B to file for. It seems USCIS will allow you to file more than one H-1B, but you only get one chance at the lottery. I want to be very stressful about this. This is very important to understand. USCIS has made it clear there are a number of ways that they anticipate people will try to circumvent the one person per registration process. Please try not to game the system. Please avoid forums that talk to you about, well, if you use this passport here, you use this passport here, then you're going to get 2 bites at the apple. That's impermissible. That's not permitted. There will be It's a highlighted rule. No matter what kind of game trick you have or people are talking about, please do not do so. It is contrary to what USCIS is requiring you. Please be above board in your registrations, in your conversations with job offers and your employers. Be transparent. If something seems like it's not in good faith, it probably is not a good idea to execute that. Let's see. I'm going to quickly scroll through the remaining questions here. Oh, okay, this is a common misconception. Do employers need to prove that he was not able to find suitable candidates locally? That's why he's hiring out to the U.S. No, that is not a requirement for H-1B. I know there's a lot of information out there that concerns about if you before you can apply or get approved, you need to show that you couldn't find a U.S. worker. That's different processes related to green cards and other sorts of visas. It's not a requirement for the H-1B. I'm going to scroll. Team, I invite you to quickly tell me if there's anything that highlighted.
Karan's question, even though I believe you touched upon it. Karan, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have a U.S. master's degree, you are always eligible for the master's degree quota or master's cap. So you will get 2 bites at the apple, so to speak. You'll be made a part of the master's lottery and the bachelor's lottery as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, and I'm going to address and close. There is one, at least, individual who keeps asking the same question, which is, how do I know my employer actually registered me? Whoever you are, and there's more than one person, if that is an issue where you don't trust your employer, I would advise you just find another employer, or you need to set your expectations accordingly. This is an employer-driven process. There is information that you will not have access to readily available. Having said that, there is reasonable questions you can ask your employer to confirm that they have filed and they have filed on your behalf. Also, you are allowed to register more than once. You will only be put into the lottery only once. But if you have more than one employer who wants to register you, do so. But, you know, to compel an employer to show me what you did and that you did it is not something that you can enforce, really. So it's just about your employer-employer relationship. I would see that's, I'm sorry this happened to you before and it's regrettable. There is bad faith acting or accidents happen, but, you know, there is versus experiences versus what the rules and the expectations on how the process has been built. We are at 9:36.
I'll just answer 2 questions very quickly and then we can wrap it up.
Yes, who am I looking at here?
Pragati, I'm not able to answer your question in this open forum because it's like a couple of options that you can consider. I would recommend scheduling a consultation. You can go to our website, imi-usa.com, and you'll find options for consultations. This is very specific in nature and would require additional time to address. So please just keep that in mind. And then there's a question from Gabriela Dominguez. Gabriela, we offer 2 consultation options. One is for 20 minutes, which is $200, and the other is for 30 minutes, which is $250. Again, you can go to our website, imi-usa.com, which not only will give you a lot of information that you're looking for, but also help you enable you to schedule a consultation through our system. And Tracy, to answer your question, yes, this webinar will be shared with all participants in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa. Let's close with that. Thank you again so much. If we didn't get to your question, again, I will say that we didn't get to it, or if you ask more than once, presume, please, that this is not a question we can answer in the webinar today, given the specificity or the information the type of question you are asking. We wish you best of luck in the registration process. We welcome you to contact us if you'd like to engage our services. But if not that, please check our website, which I shared on the chat, as well as what was on the webinar today, for other news, alerts, and insights as new information comes in the coming weeks and months for this year's H-1B and other visa and green card processes. Lyndsay, Shilpa, anything to close with?
Just thank you, everyone who took the time to join us today. We really appreciate this opportunity to share information with you, and I hope it was, or we hope that was useful to all of you. We're again sorry if we couldn't get to your question. I know Zara wanted to know if her husband's nationality affects H-1B filing. No, it's your even your nationality doesn't matter. As long as you qualify for an H-1B, you can apply for it. So I hope that helps. Last but not the least, we are always available to answer questions. Please just reach us either through a formal consultation or submit an online inquiry, and we'll try to help you out. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.